Remember that scene from Jurassic Park where Alan Grant is talking to the young kid about the potential raptor attack, talking about what it would be like to be attacked by a raptor? He's saying the rapture is looking at you, pacing. You may think that if you stay still, the rapture won't see you, but it's not true. And so he's just staring right back at you. And as he's positioning himself to attack, the attack then comes from either side where you're not expecting it. This is a good metaphor for what can happen during recessions and during crises. It's not what we see coming that really causes the massive problems. It's sometimes what we don't see coming. And there's a lot of reasons for this, both financial and emotional and from an economic standpoint. Now, from an emotional standpoint, we all have a spectrum of what we can deal with on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's say 1 being something that doesn't bother us at all, 10 being the kind of thing or the kind of series of things that could cause us to have an emotional breakdown. Now, we're investors, so we're at least somewhat prepared for a downturn, a recession, economic collapse, because this is the stuff that we pay attention to every day. Like I mentioned previously, every conversation I've had over the last 5 years at least has brought up the conversation about recessions and the likelihood that it will happen and how significant it will be. Now, having said that, this social distancing thing is not something that we're used to. And that alone can cause a lot of emotional challenges. I mean, people aren't used to it. People want to interact. When things are challenging, you want to hug your friends and be around them. So it's not exactly what we're prepared for as investors, but at least we're used to contemplating the fact that things go in cycles. So this whole situation could have you at an 8 out of 10 in terms of what you're okay with dealing with. But you're probably close to your limit, right? That's totally reasonable. And this happens to all of us where you may think you've got it under control, but at the end of the day, every now and then you'll find yourself getting a little bit worked up over things that are inconsequential. Like, for example, you drop something on your foot and you start to feel your amygdala take over, the fight or flight response all of a sudden starts to control your entire body. And you're like, whoa, I just jumped from an 8 to a 10 over nothing. And the reason for that is that you're already operating at a very high stress level. And so the slightest little thing can send you over the edge. With serious economic corrections, it's very similar. It's not usually what you're expecting that can make things super, super challenging. How many times have you heard the story, I had to close my company down and then I hurt my back and that was it. That was the thing that made me never be the same since then. I got arrested for blank and then I lost my marriage and then I was never the same since. In this particular crisis, what's the big fear? I lost my job and then I got sick. Now, this is not only true emotionally, like I mentioned, this is also true economically, because you get pushed to the brink by the first punch. You feel like, okay, you got it. I understand what's going on. And the second or third punch that you don't really see coming at all actually does the damage. So what does this refer to, right? The housing crisis. Okay, real estate market is correcting. Got it. Oh, I'm sorry. Global liquidity crisis. All right, the dot-com bubble is popping. Well, those tech stocks were probably overvalued. 9/11. What does this sound like for this crisis? Okay, coronavirus, it's causing a pause on all people visiting stores, for example. Corporate debt bubble popped. Maybe that's what's going to happen. We've been talking about it all this time. It's been like, when will the corporate debt bubble pop? And what does that mean? And what are the implications of that in terms of the economic ramifications of that? Well, we have something that could certainly cause that. We've talked a lot about the retail apocalypse on this show and how it's been a little bit overblown, or a lot of bit overblown, depending on the tenant base. That's another example, right? All right, you got a typical retail store. The tenants have recovered from the Amazon threat. They're probably pushed to the brink economically and emotionally for what they can deal with. And then, boom, it's basically illegal in a lot of states to go to stores. That's the 1-2 punch that can really cause some major challenges. So what we need to do here is we need to recalibrate where you're at emotionally and economically. If you're currently at an 8 out of 10, you have to be able to bring that 8 down to a 2 quickly, because I guarantee the second one is coming. And by the way, in the rare chance that the second one is not coming, guess what? Bringing down your stress level down to a 2 and bringing up your preparedness for another crisis up is always a good idea, and it's certainly going to help. It's going to help you see the world objectively and also make wise and prudent investment decisions. So What does it mean? How do we do this? You're supposed to be stuck at home. That does not mean you can't work out. I, in fact, did get a noise complaint recently, so I've made some adjustments, but there are plenty of home, no-weight workouts available on YouTube. If you Google the name Chris Heria, Chris Heria, body weight only, dude is a master. So cool what he does. And guess what? Running is not disallowed. So get out there and do what you can to bring the stress level down, and similarly position yourself from an economic standpoint so that you can be prepared for the next correction. I also mentioned meditation previously. Headspace 10-day trial, link in the show notes page. Probably get $10 if you sign up or something like that, but there is a 10-day free trial. I think it's a really good idea to focus on this because right now the emotional component is very, very important, and the economic component will somewhat follow, but you have to be prepared for both. It's also very good to be there for your loved ones. You are usually the one, unless both you and your loved ones listen to the show or other shows like it, you are probably the one that is better prepared to deal with things like this because you've been contemplating it a lot recently prior to this happening. So in order to be a good partner, you have to be able to help your loved ones out. And that's good for them for sure, but it's also good for you. The home in which you live in needs to be calm in order to bring your stress level down and to bring your ability to make prudent investment decisions up. You got to be prepared for the next big thing. We cannot just be the person that had a good run for a couple of years and then coronavirus happened and then X happened that I didn't see coming and that's all she wrote. We got to keep moving. So keep an eye out, but while you're keeping an eye out, be prepared emotionally. Think about all those historical examples. It's never just the one. If it's just the one, you don't hear about it in the history books. You hear about it in the history books when it's the 1-2 punch. So get ready for it. I'm going to be there for you. We're going to get through this thing together. All right, listeners, you know the routine. This show is all about learning, making wise investments, and protecting and growing your capital. So if you're interested in these topics, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Of course, if you've already enjoyed a couple of great episodes, don't be shy. Leave a review. It really helps the show's visibility. And lastly, if you're an accredited investor and you're interested in learning more about our investment opportunities, the types of deals that I personally invest in, go to asymcapital.com. That's ASYMcapital.com. Thanks a lot.